Hi, I'm Bruce Dory, consultant and coach. I've been consulting and coaching for a long time, but it wasn't until 4 or 5 years ago that I found what I believe to be the very best use of coaching in business. And in this video, I'll explain why I found that using the combination of OKRs, or objectives and key results, and one-on-one coaching produces by far the best results in business and is the best use of resources for a CEO or a senior executive and his or her team, which is why many of the really successful companies use them, and not just technology companies either. I've been a successful entrepreneur, a management consultant, and a strategy senior vice president at a Fortune 100 company. Now I coach and consult a handful of CEOs and COOs and their teams. What's different about me and my style is that I believe that there's a core group of skills which can be taught and developed and practiced. And all really successful executives have learned and are practicing many of these skills. But there may be one or two areas that are holding you back, particularly now that there's more demands on you. I'm talking about skills like how to have difficult conversations or how to have really effective brief meetings. I help executives get objectively better, not just feel good or more motivated or see something from a different perspective. I also use what I believe are the best personality assessments to help you understand your strengths and derailers, and I'll go into more detail in the next video on this. In this video, I want to provide a little background to OKRs, or objectives and key results. What makes them so valuable is they bring a short-term focus. They move the execution cycle from 12 months down to 1 quarter or even down to a month. And the OKR meeting schedule makes the results very visible to the organization. The high visibility and the shorter term focus make this a powerful combination. And this is, for me, an ideal context for coaching. And since one-on-one coaching is the thing that I found makes the biggest difference in business. Look, team meetings are great and they're necessary, but many people just don't speak up, or they don't think they have a good question, or don't think of a good question during the meeting. When a team is working toward a specific, measurable result, issues come up. We get competitive, we get territorial, and it's easy to get misaligned. And it's this sort of stress which gets in the way of a team executing, and it's very difficult to see our behavior in ourselves, which is why a coach is valuable. And a coach can see things you just can't see. John Doerr's book is great, but it just describes the basic concepts. There's other books out there and programs, and I've read many of them, but Paul Niven's book is really great, the one I recommend. Paul's a really good guy, and Paul and Ben have done more for OKR execution than anybody else. They even offer a 2-day training seminar, which is outstanding. I'm certified as an OKR trainer, and I highly recommend this. Radical Focus is a terrific little book which teaches about OKRs through a fictional story about a startup. I really like this book because as an initial read, it's a fast way to kind of get up to speed and get the basic idea. Now, as a way to introduce OKRs, I'm going to provide a brief history, a brief sort of first principles of strategy and management. Peter Drucker is often thought of as the father of business management. Now, if you're interested in more detail about modern management and strategy, I've spent some time on it in my book called Lift, The Nature and Craft of Expert Coaching. But it was Drucker who shifted from the command and control, top-down influence of the mid-20th century, the sort of influence of Alfred Sloan. Drucker introduced what became an effective model, called it MBO, or Managing by Objectives. And for decades, this was considered to be the premier management structure and philosophy. The next big influence on management and strategy was the idea of creating strategy based on the concept that you can manage only what you can measure. And it was two Harvard professors, David Norton and Robert Kaplan. And they believed that companies had to integrate the measurement of tangible assets, things like culture and market intelligence, into their management systems. They developed the balanced scorecard. And by the 1990s, they not only sold millions of books, but they held massive conferences, training programs, and they had a huge online community. It was estimated that 90% of the Fortune 500 companies used balanced scorecard. From there, a number of companies and individuals refined and copied various aspects of it, and they just called it a scorecard. And they also helped popularize this idea of leading metrics or leading indicators as a way to drive behavior and results. The time horizon from balanced scorecard was 3 to 5 years, and then 1 year balanced scorecard. Now, strategy maps was also written by Kaplan and Norton, And it was essentially the structural thinking behind the balanced scorecard. A strategy map is still very useful, and I use it now to help understand the strategy from 4 perspectives. I still use the strategy map as a way to help develop OKRs today, and as a good way to visualize strategy. I found it's useful to understand the customer perspective and how a value proposition addresses the customer perspective, and then how the internal processes address the value proposition. The strategy maps were complicated, and to many, including me, they were just too complicated and too time-consuming and difficult to use. Now, this is a timeline. What's important to note here is, while John Doerr may have popularized OKRs with his book and his TED Talk, it was Andy Grove, the brilliant co-founder and operator of Intel, that essentially developed and refined them with Doerr. After his MBA, John Doerr joined Intel, and he worked with Grove for many years. He then went on to become a venture capitalist, funding companies like Google and Facebook and LinkedIn. Essentially, the idea was they take planning down from 12 months to 3, and they increase the focus from many objectives down to just 2 or 3, each with just 1 or 2 or 3 key results. In the next part of the video, I explain why I found that the combination of OKRs and one-on-one coaching is so valuable.